today's topic is coverage. Coverage is very important. You need to have at least liability coverage to drive. The coverage follows the owner. So if you are not the owner of the vehicle, you need to decide if you're a permissible user. Are you on the policy as one of the drivers? Have you been excluded? So if you are a driver that has been excluded, there is no coverage for you, then you will need to either get your own policy for your own vehicle, or you will need to drive under somebody's policy as a permissible driver that you are not excluded. So it's very important that you know if you're a permissible driver, if there's coverage for you. That's what that means. There are some policies out there, and I won't name the companies, but they have a really low monthly fee. They'll only cover the owner of the vehicle, the name insured. They won't cover any other drivers. Also, some policies will exclude work. So if you're driving for work, then the policy excludes you. You don't have any coverage. So you really have to understand your insurance policy, who the insurance policy is under, if you're a permissible driver, or if you're an excluded driver. So those are very important things to know. So when you get out there, you will at least have liability insurance that is mandated by the state. The states say that we have to be covered to drive a vehicle. This is very important. Number one is because if you are driving out there and somebody hits you, they cause property damage and bodily injury. You want to have those damages and bodily injury. You want to have a monetary payment for those, and that would come out of their liability. If you're tooling around, things happen, mistakes are made, and you're at fault for an accident. You want to be able to pay for the other person damages that you caused, the property damage as well as bodily injury, without suffering a catastrophic financial loss, and you want to protect your assets. Most people just can't, take out $30,000 and pay for bodily injury and property damage, because they made a mistake, or they did something they weren't supposed to do, or, they had a momentary lapse. So we want to have that insurance in place to protect us, and we want the other drivers to have that insurance also. So that's why it's important. There are some states like Louisiana that's a pay no play. Sorry. This means that if you don't pay for your insurance, then the other person doesn't owe you any money. Plain and simple. No pay, no play. There are some states like California that has a Prop 213. That means that if you're at fault for the accident, but the other person doesn't have any insurance, you don't owe any pain and suffering for the bodily injury. You do owe for the medical expenses, but not for the pain and suffering. So there are consequences to not having liability insurance. So you always want to make sure that you have that. So there's comprehensive, of course, that's for unexpected loss. Let's say that I'm sitting at home. I decide to get out of my car and a tree has fallen on it. That's a comprehensive claim. Or let's say that there's I come outside and there's somebody has thrown a baseball bat and hit my windshield. That's a comprehensive claim. I don't know who it is. All that kind of good stuff. It's usually a streamlined process. It's glass coverage. Usually, I know that I was driving behind a truck. The truck threw a big rock, hit my windshield, caused a lot of damage just to the glass. There wasn't any body damage. I called my insurance company. Within the next day, they were out there. They fixed it for free. Easy peasy. So no cost to me. It was great. I do run a doggy daycare, so you may hear some sounds or some sights that do not come from me. So we have a full house today, so you may hear some things. So, okay, let's talk about collision. Collision is important policy to have. It covers your vehicle if you are at fault or if you're not at fault. If you are at fault, you just pay your deductible, and you get a streamlined process to get it repaired. A lot of times the big companies work with shops. They have some sort of leverage to help you in any disputes with the shop. They also have appraisers that go out. They also guarantee repairs. There's a lot more that's taken care of when you go through your own insurance. Much easier process. Everything's streamlined. Rental coverage is available. It's for a percentage per day for a limited amount of time. Don't expect that it's going to pay the whole rental bill. So the way that you want to look at your insurance, your collision insurance, is you want to think about your deductible. What can you afford to pay at any time? So you have that in a savings account. And then if you don't have a second car, I have a second car that I use for, when my commuting car is down. If you don't have access to a second car, then you need to figure out, basically, I think for enterprise, the going rate for cars right now through the insurance is like $35. Let's say your rental coverage is for $15. Usual time of repair, especially now with the pandemic, I think they have the rental policies are now like 30 days or something. So you need to put aside the money to pay your percentage of that rental for the amount of time, and then I would put a little bit extra in there as a cushion for any Uber or any, if it goes over that 30 days, you have that aside. A lot of people get high deductibles because they lower the rates, but then when it comes time to pay up, they don't have the deductible amount. So, and now they don't have any rental coverage because they didn't get that, so the rates would be lower. So now they don't have a car to drive. So, insurance is there for immediate emergencies that are caused by unforeseen things, and your own negligence is one of those. The other day I was tooling down the road, and I looked down at the radio for a second, and I looked back up, and there was a disabled vehicle in front of me with no lights on. I swerved. The next guy swerved. I know I didn't look when I swerved. And the other guy swerved. Nobody hit each other, but that could have easily been a multi-car accident, and I would have been at fault for it. For not having proper lookout, driving recklessly, or not paying time and attention. So, and possibly making an illegal lane change, all kinds of stuff. And it could have been, there could have been, as far as I know, 20 cars involved with injuries. So, your negligence happens at any time, and you can also use your collision coverage, which I recommend when somebody's at fault for the accident, just because it's easier. You've got a low deductible, you've got high policy limits, it's streamlined. The insurance company is invested in you. You've been paying these monthly fees for years, and you also have to think is that in the underwriting process, insurance premiums are based on the frequency of accidents. So when you have more accidents, you pay higher fees, which is good for the insurance company. So there's that too. So if you drive safely, I always try to keep a cushion around me of 25 feet on every side. I maneuver away from trucks. I don't, try to do anything crazy, like try to go around them. I give them plenty of room. I try to stay away from them. It works out. I'm not a road rager. Basically I want to get to point A. I want to get from A to B with no accidents. So my deductible's low, my policy limits are high. And you also want to carry, when you have the comp and collision, you also want to carry U coverage, which is uninsured coverage. So that means that if you're tooling around and somebody hits you and you pull off to the side of the road and it comes out that their coverage has been denied for some reason, maybe they're an excluded driver, Maybe they didn't have permission according to statutes of the state. Maybe the car just didn't have coverage. They didn't know about it that they were driving. They're not the owner. All kinds of good stuff. Your U coverage will pick that up. In Georgia, the U coverages stack, which means that if you're involved in an accident that you're using the U coverage in, then you can access the policy limits from the members of the household. And then underinsured, if you're tooling around, somebody hits you, causes a total loss, you're severely injured, and their policy limits are too small to cover that, which in a lot of states the policy limits, the minimums, are very low. And in some states they can't really cover a total loss at all or any sort of bodily injury, or, they're very low. Bodily injuries are expensive. Lots of things go into injuries. If, you could have a pre-existing condition you don't know of that makes you more vulnerable to getting into, more severe injuries, all kinds of things. Then you would want to have the underinsured coverage so that you can make sure that you can pay for the excess over what their insurance limits are. So that's very important also. So we've got that taken care of. Now let's talk about the PLUP. This is a personal liability umbrella policy. This is a true story. True claim. I was handling a claim that, a teenager was a permissible user on a vehicle. He got in his license after the learner permit, driving school, good kid, went to school, played sports, all around good kid, didn't cause any problems. He decided one day he was going to wash his parents' BMW, and then he decided that after washing it he would air dry it, and the only way to do that would be to tool around the neighborhood at 90 miles per hour. These are residential streets, narrow, cars on both sides, just one lane. You really have to be careful. He decided he was going to get some air on a hill. So he went 90 miles per hour. He didn't understand, because he was inexperienced, that you can't see the other people on the other side of the hill, and they can't see you. Went over the hill, saw that there was a car. That car contained a family, and he panicked, swerved, and hit the other vehicle head on. He was at fault. The police officer gave him a ticket for speeding, reckless driving, inability to control the vehicle, not paying time attention, just really, everything that he was negligent doing. And though, it was a very tragic situation, fatalities, both vehicles were totaled. The parents had the foresight on the policy, because their exposure and their risk had increased with the teenage driver. They have a low deductible because they knew that he was going to use it at some point. They had high policy limits because they knew that it could be catastrophic, which it was, which is very tragic. And so they also understood that they owned property, that they had a house, they had a boat, they had land, all kinds of things that they had worked really hard for. And they had the foresight to get a personal liability umbrella policy. This policy covers you as the owner of the vehicle, and the son was a permissive driver under that policy. It covers you once the policy limits are paid out for an accident that you are negligent for. PLUPs are very cheap. I think the minimum is $4 million. And they just they're like a little umbrella. They sit on top of the policy and they protect you against catastrophic losses. There were fatalities, just all kinds of really tragic stuff that he was negligent for. And this PLUP policy was able to save the house, the cars, the boats, the land, and everything, and be able to settle with the claimant attorney. Now, when a catastrophic loss occurs like that, an attorney will do an asset check immediately. They want to know because they're not going to, you may or may not have a PLUP in place. And certainly, no matter how high the policy limits are, it's not going to be able to cover the loss. So he wants to be able to act immediately on seizing your assets, to be able to pay for the damages that your negligence caused. So that would be something that you would need to look into. I highly recommend it. There's just a lot of craziness out there. Things are expensive. The body is fragile. So it's one of those things, cars are built to have multiple people in them. And it's just like that, either it's due to inexperience, just a mistake. Like with me, I just looked momentarily down at the radio. I didn't even, it was something I didn't even think about. And then when I thought about the incident later,